Thank you for coming to see the No Vacancy movie today. We felt the story in this courageous church really needed to be told in the context of a motion picture. Now we're going to take you behind the scenes to see some of the true stories of No Vacancy.
Some 75 years ago when I was in school, one question I always ask, what's on the final? I knew that if I knew what was on the final, I would do well on the test. Those finals did not matter, but there is a final that matters a lot. It's called the Last Judgment. And Jesus Christ has already told us what's going to be on that final. It's found in Matthew the 25th chapter, where there he mentions how we are to minister to the hurting, and he lists them one by one. That has become the defining text of my life and ministry. And in every church, we majored on ministry to the hurting people, but never like we did in Leesburg, Florida. When I was called here, God began moving in a mighty way. We started with about 300 people, and we had no land, and so we bought multitudes of property pieces, houses, until we got enough land and houses to begin to minister. Then we started using the houses to minister to hurting people. But then one night, the Lord moved my heart and said, "You're doing the wrong thing." I said, "What am I doing wrong, Lord?" He says, "You're putting people in houses you would not want to live in. You need to build a new ministry village." And I said, "Yes, Lord." And the next Sunday, I said to the people, "We're going to build a brand new ministry village." Not a good time, because Leesburg was suffering recession because of the freezes of the orange groves. But the people responded. And in 30 days, we raised enough money to build the Christian village. Amazing village it is, because through it we had the privilege of winning over 7,000 people to Christ who followed the Lord in New Testament baptism. An incredible work. When I wrote my book, I called it, "It's a God Thing," because what has happened here is not a man thing. It is a God thing. To God and God alone be the glory, in the name of Jesus.
Jamie, how about sharing with us on camera a little bit about your story?
I was addicted to heroin, like you said, for about 15 years. Lived in Long Island, New York. I was homeless. My mom lived in the villages down here and said, "Hey, why don't you come live with us?" So I thought it was a good chance to get away from everything, start a new life over. So within about a week down here, I was back hooked on drugs. Started with pills, led to heroin, which led to me losing my jobs, and I ended up stealing a bunch of jewelry from my mom a little at a time, to the point where I finally got arrested. I was in jail, and after about a month, my mom called and said that she was willing to drop the charges. The state was willing to drop the charges if I would go to a rehab. Sounded good to me. I've been to rehabs and mental institutions before. I can handle that. So the only difference was it was going to be a rehab at a church. And I had to tell her, "Let me call you back. I don't know about that. I think I might rather stay with the convicts than with a bunch of Christians." So I didn't even call her back, and she called me back about a week later and said, "I need to know because there's an interview process." So I said, "All right, I'll give the interview a try." I figured that was my get out of jail free card. Charges were dropped. I came here for an interview. I didn't know what I was walking into. This was not like any rehab I've ever been to in my life. In fact, I thought that everybody here was gullible, and I was gonna, confront that. I was gonna use the Bible to prove thousands of years of Christianity wrong. He really revealed himself to me, and ever since I never could turn back.
I'm standing in the middle of our benevolence center, which is one of the places where we deliver food and clothing and help and counseling and relief to people. And in actuality, this processing center, we process 15 tons of food a week helping people. So if you'll follow me, I'm going to show you a little bit of a tour of what else we do. And we actually have 100 volunteers, and these are some of our fine volunteers with our benevolence ministry here. And they process every day, Monday through Friday. We process the food, the clothing, keeping people here. This is their packaging table, dry goods, frozen goods, refrigerated goods that we try to deliver to the needy people here in Leesburg. The next stop on our No Vacancy tour is here at our Women's Care Center. This is an 18-bed drug and alcohol facility for women. And the true story you just saw about Cecil, that story can be multiplied hundreds, if not thousands of times. And I'm sitting here with some of the wonderful ladies from our Women's Care Center. And I would like Gina Beasley, who's the assistant director here, who works with the ladies every day. Can you share a little bit about your story, what led you here, and then how you ended up becoming a staff member here?
Sure. I came here back in December of 2012 with an alcohol addiction. I didn't really want to come on my own. My oldest daughter brought me here. I was so certain that I didn't have a problem that I showed up drunk that morning. And the assistant director at the time told my daughter to leave me here, and she took me to Livestream to detox. During that time, I was certain that I didn't need to come back here because I went for 6 days without drinking, so surely I didn't need this place. But when I returned here, I was just greeted by a whole lot of love and kindness. They really surprised me with their goodness. But within 2 weeks of being here, I was back there in room number 4 and actually had an encounter with the one true living God. He delivered me on that very night of my alcohol addiction, my cigarette smoking, wanting to run every time I got next to a door. And I woke up the next morning and just could not get enough Jesus. So it was life-changing.
That's a beautiful story, Gina. Can you share with me a little bit about, like, typically what happens when a girl comes here, you know, family referral, or she calls out to us for help and they say, I need help with my addiction. Can you kind of tell me what's the kind of the first steps and what's the process here that you do with the girls each?
Sure. Once I place that phone call, we determine if they have been actively using, if they need to detox. Because we're not medical here, we do suggest that they go to Livestream for detox, and then they return back to us for program. At the beginning, the first 30 days, the fog is just kind of lifting. So they're just really getting acclimated to what's going on in the house, what kind of classes we offer, just really figuring out who they are. And then God just kind of takes over from there. It's really an exciting thing to see.
One of the glaring needs we discovered was also the vast amount of medical needs of both the homeless and those suffering through addictions. So we knew to be able to really address the needs of people properly, we really needed to have this medical component. The medical center itself has 50 volunteer doctors that assist. We have nurse practitioners, we have retired nurses as well. I'm now standing in our crisis rape exam room. In many communities, when a woman suffers the trauma of rape or abuse, they have to go to the emergency room and sometimes meet a law enforcement officer. And besides the trauma of the rape and everything they're going through psychologically and mentally, then there's the added pressure of going to the emergency room. One day, the local rape crisis center called and said, can you also assist in that? So we developed with the local rape crisis center an exam room where a girl or woman can be brought here in anonymity, and there's a back door, they can come in here, be examined, and then they begin the process of helping the woman begin to overcome the trauma of the rape. And so we partner with pharmaceutical companies. We actually have pharmaceutical companies that give us pretty close to $1 million a year in free medicine that we just get it to the people, the clients that really need it. So as we begin looking at the needs of the community, one of the things we added to our medical center is a dental care unit. Besides the 50 medical doctors that volunteer their time, we have 8 dentists that also volunteer their time, and we have many volunteers that come in that are hygienists, other occupations in the dental field. And we're able to address those needs, again, in the name of Christ. Here at First Baptist, we are passionate about life. And yes, even the tiniest life, the one kicking around there in the womb. As a result, here at our care center, one of the things we do is we provide for pregnant girls and teens and moms. We provide formula, we provide diapers, we provide car seats, we provide clothing, we provide counseling, that we have women that come alongside them to help them to make out that life-changing decision. I'd like for you to tell on camera a little bit about your story and then tell a little bit about what we do here at our Pregnancy and Family Care Center.
What drew me to the Pregnancy and Family Care Center was a past abortion experience that I had. When I was 17, I had an abortion in 1977. My dad was a doctor, I was a straight A student, I went to church every Sunday. But when I got pregnant, I just was something I wasn't expecting, and I just felt like I needed to take care of the problem. I was afraid to tell anyone. I felt like he was leading me into a pregnancy center, crisis center ministry so that I could at least help tell other people information that I wasn't given, to give them hope, to let them know that I didn't have to make that choice and that there were people there to help. I probably wouldn't have made that decision myself if I had had someone there to help me through that.
And understand that this past year that there's 30 babies that are alive today breathing and kicking because of the work of what you guys are doing down here. And I know that there's been hundreds of babies saved since we started this operation.
We share truth with them, we share hope for them to give life, but we're here for whatever they're walking through in life.
So why do ministry evangelism? Well, first of all, it's just what Christ is about. I'm thinking of Matthew 9:36, when he looked at the crowds. They were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd, and he felt compassion for them. And we're told to model that compassion. Of course, the parable of Matthew 25, when Christ said, "When you've done to the least of these, you've done to me." And Paul also said in 1 Thessalonians 2:8 to share not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well. I'm thinking back to when my wife and I were being interviewed by this church in 2007, and we sat down with the search committee. We'd just taken a tour of the Christian Care Center. We're wiping tears out of our eyes, basically. And I'm kind of blown away with all God's doing here. And I'm like, hey, is the CCC like finished? Is it complete? And it's before we had the Samaritan Inn. And they looked at me and says, no, we actually want to buy a motel. And I'm like, someone needs to tell this crazy church that churches don't buy motels. But you can see from the movie you just saw that God had another plan, and we're so grateful for that. I do want to encourage church leaders and pastors to really invest in your community and just pray for practical ways to touch your community with the love of Christ. It won't be without a lot of heartache and pain. We've had many a mess here at our church and wonderful challenges that God gives us wisdom, but there is joy in seeing even slow progress. But I believe there's some Cecils in your community that the Lord wants to use you to touch their lives with the love of Christ.